While this is a time of widespread fear and uncertainty, it's also an opportunity for change. Right now, during the Great Pause, as I've been calling it, we as a human species have an unprecedented opportunity for a firmware upgrade. Firmware, for those of you who don't know, is a small bit of software that powers our devices. When you install an update on your iOS or Android phone, what you're doing is actually updating the firmware. And more often than not, it gives you the ability to do new things that you couldn't do before. The most common example is new emojis. In this context, I'm talking about the software that runs between our ears. This firmware upgrade, like many of the ones on your phone, requires us to opt into it. It isn't automatic. And frankly, this opportunity is going to pass many humans by. Many of them by choice and some by circumstance. Many others, however, are opting in to courageously do the inner work and reflection such a firmware upgrade requires. Change is inevitable. Evolution in our thinking and how we show up in the world is optional. Entrepreneurs, makers, and creatives know that the future of tomorrow is being designed today, right now, all over the world, to keep what serves us and shed the rest. To rise to that challenge, humanity needs us to show up as our undiluted selves and to bring everything we can to the table. I'm Josh Leslie, and I've been a social entrepreneur for over 7 years. I didn't plan on becoming an entrepreneur, but that path chose me after I walked away from my career and dream job over matters of personal and professional integrity and what I would now call dilution fatigue. Part of me showing up today as my undiluted self is to record this video and share something I've had on my heart for a couple of years now. It's no secret that the language that we use shapes our world, both our inner world and the world around us. A few years ago, a fellow entrepreneur expressed dislike for the phrase, "kill two birds with one stone," and asked whether I had an alternative. "Catch two butterflies with one net" was what I offered. And that conversation planted the seed for an idea. The world is imbalanced in many ways, and in business, one specific way is in the very language that we use. Not surprisingly, it's full of masculine constructs, terms, and analogies. Terms and concepts borrowed from war, from hunting, and other traditionally male-dominated activities. To take an example, prospect originally comes from gold mining and mining for other precious minerals. To take a less obvious example, sales page. On the surface, doesn't seem overly masculine. Yet a friend of mine, Yola, who's particularly attuned to the energy and history behind things, really dislikes it. She prefers the term invitation page. And you might dismiss that as her personal preference, but when you think about it, sales has a long and illustrious history behind it. Many of you may be familiar with the scene from Glengarry Glen Ross of ABC, Always Be Closing. In a nutshell, it means get the sale no matter what. There's also decades of door-to-door sales of various products, including encyclopedias and vacuum cleaners, where salespeople were specifically mandated and incentivized to get the sale whether or not it's in the interest of the person buying. By way of a counterexample, holding space, which has only recently gotten some uptake and general usage and acceptance, is not incidental in my view. I see it as a natural softening of the language as more female entrepreneurs enter the field and build their businesses, communities, and offerings. So you might be wondering, what's the idea that conversation planted the seed for? I call it IMBUE.biz. I believe it's a time to consciously and intentionally imbue the language of business with more of the feminine. Language, analogies, constructs, and concepts. To counterbalance the language of business with feminine energy. Many of you might be familiar with the traditional Chinese concept of yin and yang, which I will certainly not unpack in any fulsome way in this video, but one aspect of that is about the concept of balance. And one aspect of that is the balance of masculine and feminine. Shifting gears a bit, the group that has come to be known as the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, developed many of the standards underlying the Internet. It's because of them that you can watch this video, or Netflix, or any video for that matter. As you can imagine, much of the work of the IETF is pretty darn complicated, and yet thousands of thoughtful humans have been voluntarily collaborating over the internet to do the work for over 50 years. I find that both very inspiring and heartening, although admittedly I'm a bit of an internet governance geek. So what is this? Is this a call to arms? Well, I like the emotional charge of that, but not really the imagery. Is it a call to action? I don't think that's strong enough. I consider this a call to activation for those who are ready to show up undiluted and to take up this challenge with me. This is a call to female entrepreneurs and business leaders, those who build and lead entrepreneurial communities, light workers, makers, creatives, contractors, freelancers, side hustlers, translators, and linguists. Scholars are welcome too, though this project is intended to be more practical than scholarly in nature and to produce actionable deliverables in relatively short order. I'm especially calling on those entrepreneurs and business leaders who feel they represent historically underrepresented perspectives, including but not limited to Indigenous communities. Male entrepreneurs and business leaders are welcome as well, whether they consider themselves feminists or simply stalwart supporters of female entrepreneurs. The LGBTQ2S+ community is very much welcome and encouraged to participate as well, though I will note that this is not an exercise in overhauling the English language. This is a great time to call together a community to do that kind of work, but it's decidedly out of scope for this project, and those won't be the nature of the conversations or work that we'll be doing as part of this project. 4 weeks from now, I and others will be holding space for the IMBUE.biz Online Summit. The purpose of the summit is to dive in and figure out the work to be done and to self-organize into working groups of committed volunteers to then run with the various aspects of that work. 4 weeks from then, we'll host a webinar series sharing our work in progress, key takeaways from the IMBUE.biz Summit, as well as our next steps and the new opportunities that we see as a result of our conversations to that point and the work that we've done to that stage. This is not about pretty graphics or compelling landing pages, so if anybody wants to volunteer their gifts on that front, please get in touch. Nor is it an entrepreneurial love-in, although it's been really cool to see many of those popping up all over the internet. This is about rolling up our sleeves and doing the work, engaging in thoughtful, respectful, reflective dialogue, and leveraging the unprecedented collective brain trust this pandemic has made it possible to bring together. If this project calls to you, there are 2 ways that you can get involved. For those who are interested and passionate about helping to roll up their sleeves and contribute their talents, experience, knowledge, perspective, and gifts to do the work, join us for the IMBUE.biz Summit, May 15th to 17th. For those who don't want to be involved in doing the work but want to be the first to hear about and benefit from the results of our efforts, join us for the IMBUE Work in Progress webinar series, June 12th to 14th. Visit IMBUE.biz, that's IMBUE.biz, and choose the option you feel best suits you at this time. This isn't a simple undertaking by any stretch, but it's one I'm wholeheartedly committed to holding space for. Thank you for watching this video and for sharing it with anyone that you know it will resonate with. In the meantime, stay home and be safe. Take care. Cheers.